On this episode of Local Film Talk, we're chatting with documentarian Adam Booher. To be the first to get this and all our other episodes, subscribe to the Local Film Talk YouTube channel, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. Now let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Local Film Talk. This is the show where we talk to local filmmakers about the projects they're working on, hopefully get some tips you can use for your own projects. I'm Bob Walters.
And I'm Conrad Arnold of Triangle Film Community. And so we got a couple of things happening pretty soon, Bob. We got things we need to discuss. We got business.
Yes, we do. Lots of events coming up.
Yes, and I think the first thing we need to knock out is this little thing called FilmSpark.
FilmSpark, never heard of it.
What? You were so involved last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I take a lot of painkillers. So explain it to refresh my memory and explain to the folks out there in the audience.
All right, FilmSpark is the film arm of SparkCon, which is an interdisciplinary arts festival that happens downtown Raleigh every September. This year it's September 15th through the 18th. What we are doing is putting together a small local film festival and just screening tons of awesome movies for, people who love local movies.
Yeah, pretty much anything in North Carolina is eligible, right?
Right. Anything from North Carolina made 2014 or later.
Right. And you can submit your films. We're looking for everything. We're looking for shorts. We're looking for features, narrative, documentary. I think we're even talking about taking music videos and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah.
If it was made, by people in North Carolina, we want to see it. So head on over to our Film Freeway page and submit your film to us.
And right now we are still in the early bird deadline until the end of the month. So
early bird deadline means deep discount, people. Festival submissions can get expensive, but you will not break the bank submitting to FilmSpark. That's
right. So let's see what else we got coming up.
Let's see. Next thing we got a meetup next Thursday.
Right. That's right. Thursday, the 21st.
At Rally Point. That's off Harrison Avenue in that shopping center with the Big Bass Pro Shop right off of I-40. We're going to be meeting there at the bar. A whole bunch of cool people are going to show up. Lots of local filmmakers and everything. Hopefully some of these guests we've been telling to come and join us for that. People that you've been seeing on our episodes recently and are like, that guy's awesome. I want to have a beer with him. Well, this will be your chance to do that.
Yes. Let's see what else we got coming up. Oh, Eastern North Carolina Film Festival.
Yes.
At the end of the month.
What are the dates on that one?
I believe it's April 30th.
April 30th? I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know if you have that one queued up.
I don't have it queued up, but I do believe it's April 30th based off of
the link will be in the show notes, people.
The true information is in the show notes. Don't trust us. Don't trust anything we say during the next 45 minutes.
We drink a lot of cough syrup when we record these episodes, so yeah, trust the show notes. They're probably more accurate. And Eastern North Carolina Film Festival is where you will be able to find the two films on the wall behind me here. Two of our wonderful sponsors on Local Film Talk. The directors were kind enough to send us posters for their films, and so we talk about them. And you could be one of these people. Just send us an 11x17 poster to the address listed in the show notes, and you may find your poster on the wall behind me with us talking about it every episode, encouraging people to go see it. So let us start off over here to my, I'm going to say right.
Yes.
And probably be wrong. I'm right? Awesome. Where We're Meant to Be, feature film by our good friend Mike Howard. It's a story, 8 separate stories about life and love and how the little moments in one person's life affect other people's lives in ways that sometimes they don't even realize. We actually got to see the premiere a couple weeks ago, right?
We did, and it was fantastic.
Yes, super awesome film with lots of local folks. If you come out to the meetup, you will probably won't have to throw a stone very far. You could probably swing a pool cue and hit somebody that worked on that film. We encourage you to swing pool cues at our meetups Cough syrup. It's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And over here on my left, we have My Dumb Face, which is from local director Nick Beery. Nick, you may recognize from a couple of our episodes, particularly our special episodes where we covered the Carborough Film Festival, because Nick is the festival director of the Carborough Film Festival. And his latest directorial effort is My Dumb Face, which is a short film about a young girl whose family is going through some changes. She's having to make some decisions about where her alliances are and what kind of person she's going to be. And again, another local film with local people shot in and around Carborough, North Carolina. You got a chance to see it because you were on the judging board for Eastern North Carolina Film Festival, right?
Yep, it's good.
So you finally watched them? Sent in your picks and everything?
I sent in my picks, yep.
Nice. So, best of luck to both of these films. Hopefully they both win something. You folks should definitely go out, check out the Eastern North Carolina Film Festival. Lots of our other friends have things that are screening there. Our buddy Evan Kidd, whose first feature film, Son of Clowns, had its world premiere last week. That will also be screening at the Eastern North Carolina Film Festival, so you could check that out. Also, some films tying into our next event. Also, some films by our buddy Rob Underhill will be showing at the Eastern North Carolina Film Festival. And we will also be screening a feature film by Rob for Triangle Film Community in the near future. Tell the folks about that, Conrad.
That's on May 19th at the Cary Theater. We're screening Fever Dreams, which is a anthology film of shorter, like kind of horror thriller stories written by Al Julian.
Our buddy Al Julian, he keeps popping up.
He does pop up because
in all the cool projects.
The dude is a writing machine, man.
Like, he is prolific.
He definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we're screening that. We're still looking for a short film to open that night with.
Oh yeah, we need our they won't let us use Bugs Bunny cartoons because I think most of them are considered too racist now. So instead, we're reaching out to the local community for a film to show before the feature. So if you happen to have a short film, and we know you do, because there are a lot of you out there, submit it to us. How do they submit that? What's the email address?
They can just email the show, or they can find us on the Facebook group and send us a private message.
Okay. Email the show. You're putting this on me now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got this. I'm on top of it.
Man, you got good shoulders. You can handle it.
See, here we go. I keep pulling me back in. All right. I got this. All right. So that's the upcoming business. If you want to keep up with our community and see what's coming up next, check out the Triangle Film Community website, trianglefilmcommunity.com. Also at NC Film on Twitter, and you'll be able to know what we got coming up.
Awesome. All right, so let's get to our interview with Adam, man.
Adam Booher.
Hey.
He edited several documentaries for the Fusion channel on YouTube. In particular, we're going to be talking about a documentary on the Ferguson riots. And in the end, we touch a little on one about two protesters in Rio de Janeiro who each dress up as Batman. How's that for a teaser? So without any further ado, let's get to our conversation with Adam Booher. And thanks for sending us the docs to preview, which for anybody out there watching, they're actually available. Are they available to the public, or are they still private on YouTube?
They're available for free on YouTube. The first is called Ferguson, a report from occupied territory. The second is called Rio Bizarro, superhero politics in Brazil. So yeah, you can just do a quick Google search and watch it on your own time for free.
And you're the lead editor on both of those, right?
That's right.
Okay. So what for people watching in the future, people who aren't familiar, what's Fusion? Because Fusion is the YouTube channel that these videos are under.
Yeah, Fusion launched in February 2015. It's a partnership between Univision and Disney, and they launched attempting to kind of take on Vice for the millennial audience, and the jury's out whether they've succeeded there, but it's a relatively new platform.
Not bad. I mean, they have at the moment they have about 93,000 subscribers, which is pretty close to what we've got. So kudos to them. They're coming along. Um,
They also have a cable channel.
okay, yeah, I thought I had heard some. I thought I remembered them as a TV channel, but so have these two documentaries been on TV?
Yeah, that's right. They both played on television. From what I hear, to a pretty nice sized audience.
Okay.
Ferguson played in March of last year, and the Rio Bizarro film just came out on Saturday.
Okay. So with I suspected they were for TV because they were give or take about the length of time that you would have for a TV show. The Ferguson one is actually, geez, it was like 53 minutes, so it's almost a full hour. Doesn't leave much time for commercials.
Yeah, what played on television was shorter. It was 42.
Okay. I was going to ask you. So you made these for the YouTube channel, but if they're also going to be broadcast on TV, I don't know that we've ever talked to anybody on the show who's done work for TV. What kind of standards and requirements do they lay out for you? You have to meet this, and this to get it broadcast worthy.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting process because both these films were initially for web, and then they were then subsequently picked up for television. So then it's like a process of retiming it to fit the clocks that they have. They have very specific clocks, like the first segment, no more than 11 minutes and should be the longest, that kind of thing.
I was telling you, Conrad, at that meeting we were having the other day, the segment's got to be a certain length. You can't be like, this first one's going to be 15 minutes, and the next one's going to be 12 minutes, and that last segment will be 4 minutes.
Right, the show clocks.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
And then also for television, they don't actually like credits. So the credits at the end of the Rio Bizarro piece, which I quite like, they were just snipped.
Yeah, I noticed over the past, what would you say, decade, now they starting the new program and running the credits for the last one in the corner.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Conrad?
I was just saying that's the trend nowadays for sure.
Yeah.
Although in the Ferguson doc, we snuck them in there after the hook, and they let that fly.
Right. Yeah, it's like people don't want to watch ending credits and they don't want to watch opening credits, so we'll just smush the two together. And that way you can knock one out and the other one, and then you can get right back to the movie. So yeah, these were both really interesting topics. I was unaware of the two Batman protesters in Rio. Now you were just the editor on these; you weren't the director or anything. But how did you become involved in the projects?
So both films are directed by a local filmmaker. His name's Orlando de Guzman. He's here in Carborough. And the Ferguson doc was my first collaboration with him. And that came to be kind of serendipitously just because he has an office next to mine. And so it was kind of a matter of time before we worked together, and then I was very happy to sort of work with him on a project as meaningful as that one.
So was he hooked up with Fusion and he brought you along to help out with the project, or did you guys decide to team up on these projects and then it landed at Fusion?
Yeah, that's right. So I was saying that online Fusion launched in February 2015. So at that time, what they did was like headhunt a lot of people from Vice. And so he was previously with Vice, and so they snatched him up along with Tim Pool, who is the host or on-camera talent for both those films.
Okay, that is sneaky. The world of cable television and internet television is cutthroat.
Yeah. So he invited me along. We went in November 2015 to Ferguson, and I went sort of thinking, or with the kind of immediate task of we were going to make some breaking news stories. He was going to shoot them, I was going to edit them, and they were going to come out the next day. And we did that. We made 3 of them. Sort of like, and the breaking news kind of pace of it didn't allow for like the substance that we eventually got into in the feature-length doc.
Right.
But and basically covered the protests. But we spent a month there, and we came away from it with some really kind of interesting and frightening content, interviews, characters that we met, and then we just got working on the doc.
Okay. Sorry, were you going to say something, Conrad?
Oh, I was just saying, after having seen it, it's like I knew things were bad, but I didn't realize how absolutely screwed up the entire system was until after watching that. I couldn't believe it. Like the idea of getting 8 tickets, and then you could be just imprisoned for that,
and then they got to pay to get you out of that jail, and you just end up getting transported to another one. You know, you always hear, people always joke around here. It's like, oh, I see a lot of cops out. They must be trying to meet their quota of speeding tickets for the end of the month. But that's we joke around about that. But then you see what's actually going on in places like Ferguson, and it's kind of chilling.
Yeah, I think you said you didn't know about it, and I think that speaks directly toward how these things are reported. And so when we arrived, it became clear that and this was like a media frenzy. Like the hotel we were staying in was overrun by the media that was there solely to film potential riots that happened when the announcement of the grand jury announcement happened. And so this didn't happen. People were waiting. They're like, maybe it's today. Maybe it's today. No, it wasn't today. Maybe it's today. And so there was just this crazy tension and so much, the world kind of watching.
Sharks looking for blood in the water.
Exactly. And what we found was all of this reporting was all focused on the very specific interaction between Mike Brown and Darren Wilson. Like, did he have his hands up? Did he not? Was he walking away? Was he like very specific things? And I don't know if purposefully or not, but ignoring the larger issues of policing that sort of set the stage for all this. So I think our film at least attempts to kind of redirect the conversation where we think it's more appropriate.
Okay. Well, what I kind of, especially since the 2 films that you sent us to check out are both, I guess the category would be called activist documentaries. In this case, both specifically covering protests, government protests. And I'm kind of interested to hear what goes into making one of those, because you're dealing with a very specific, timely situation, possibly, and again, I don't want to generalize about protesters or, how these things go off, but in some cases, especially in the case of Ferguson, it can get dangerous, and you're there trying to cover stuff at the same time, not get tear gassed or hit with a stick or all that stuff. What is it like trying to cover one of these things, and what's the attraction to you?
Yeah, so being in Ferguson, I've been very few places where I've felt as unsafe, and it wasn't all the police, and it wasn't all sort of the protests and the energy around that. It was this combination of things, these groups that had descended on this tiny town, the KKK, all sorts of groups that you don't want to mess around with. There at the night of the grand jury announcement, there was a group, they call themselves the Oath Takers, and their mission was to protect private property, and they would post up on rooftops with high caliber rifles. And so the combination of all that stuff just made me feel pretty unsafe.
It's not even, I mean, yeah, there's obviously a lot of tension between the police in the town and the protesters, in this case, the black community in the town. But, in that particular situation, because it's such a media frenzy, you got all these outside groups capitalizing on it, like you say, these oath takers, the KKK. I don't know if I'd say the National Guard was capitalizing on it, but that's an outside group that was brought in and escalates everything. So, yeah, that's got to be a real clusterfuck.
And something that was reported widely was that gun sales in St. Louis went through the roofs.
Mm-hmm.
Just the general fear of like the possibilities, what could happen. And we know that fear is essentially the strongest motivator.
Right.
Yeah. One of the most telling parts to me in that documentary was the contrast with the open Cary rally.
Mm.
There's this guy. He's got 2 pistols and a freaking rifle strapped to his chest, like it's nothing. And there's no shields, there's no riot gear, there's no tanks.
There's like 3 cops leaning against a police car down the block or something. Yeah.
And then there's like a woman with the pistol with a freaking Confederate flag on the handle. Like, how much more obvious can you be?
Yeah, and they and I guess we can get to this in the editing and how you shape your story, but those people did end up coming off kind of clueless about the whole thing. So, what now when you go and you cover something like this, you're going into a hot zone and everything, and you may have to worry about your safety because we're always looking for advice and tips that other people can use in their projects. And hopefully people out there have something they're passionate about, they want to go out and cover. And you've been there, you've done that. Perhaps you've got some advice you can give people. How do you? I mean, especially in a situation as chaotic as that, it's not just going to be the action is not all going to be in one place. There's going to be stuff unfolding all around you. And again, not just even in 2 or 3 places, but you have to watch your back and all that stuff. And the whole time you're trying to point a camera at what you want to cover, but also keep yourself safe. What's that like? Well, I guess you've kind of talked about what that's like, but what advice do you give to other people who might find themselves in that kind of situation?
Yeah. So this is certainly Orlando, my colleague's area of expertise. He's done this sort of all over the world, and so he has the experience. He's gone through specific trainings for things like this. But I can certainly give advice. I mean, the cameras we were shooting on, 7D with a cage, you hold it right in front of your face. What you don't want to do is put something big on your shoulder that blocks 180 degrees of your vision.
Right, that makes sense. Case something's happening over here, whether it be interesting or potentially a threat to you, you don't want to not be able to see what's going on.
Exactly. And then the other thing to mention is because we were there with Fusion, ABC affiliate, we were like decked out in Kevlar and gas masks. So they dot their I's and cross their T's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, so what do you do in a situation like that where a lot can be happening all over the place on both sides? What do you do to indicate as best as possible to everyone around you that you're not a threat, you're not, I don't know if the term is you're not participating in it, but you've got the cops in riot gear, you got the guys up on the roof, you got the protesters, and everybody's getting antsy. What do you do to keep the crosshairs off of you, so to speak?
It's a great question, and it's a ever more complicated question because I would say probably a big portion of the people there, are there to report, are also there to protest, and because you can be a reporter with a small camera, the line is not very clear.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like you were talking about, you don't want a big shoulder-mounted camera. There was a time not too terribly long ago, 10, 15 years, when the reporter, you knew someone was a legit reporter because they had a camera the size of a suitcase on their shoulder. Nowadays somebody could be reporting for a website and they're shooting stuff on a camera phone.
Yeah.
You don't know, and just looking at that person, unless they're decked out in a, TV5 vest or something, they could just be some guy, or they could be with a news organization. So, yeah, how do you stand out?
So I think that's it. And this is what we did, is you just don't stand out. We wore hoodies, actually. So, but at the same time, it's important to have your credentials on you in case it's needed. But in that world, you don't want to be wearing a reflective vest. I'll say that.
Right. Did you find, having cameras? I mean, again, I don't know if, since there's probably so many of them everywhere, maybe you guys don't stand out as much. But did you find that having a camera, just by that nature, made you more of a target to people? Did people standing next to you want to talk to the camera, or do something flashy in front of the camera to get your attention?
Yeah, and some of that makes for really nice television. In one case, it helped us find the story that ended up being sort of the story of the film, and I'll just tell that story. We were like driving around town looking for something to film, because we were going to put out like a 3-minute short piece, and so we were looking for blood, like you said earlier, and somebody was a group of people were doing an art project. So in the days leading up to the grand jury announcement, all the businesses in Ferguson boarded up their houses, and so people felt like this was ugly and scary, which it was, and so they set out to sort of decorate or make art of the boarded up building. So these guys were putting these silhouetted hands, they're plastering them to the boards, and so we filmed that, and we interviewed the artist and this guy who was there helping. He just starts yelling at us, and he's like you media, you don't know what the story is. You're out here filming thing, like for your Instagram. That's what he said, and you're so clueless, and you're not. This isn't the story. And so we put the camera down, and we chatted with him for a bit, and he ended up introducing us to Chris Brown, who's the main character of our film.
Right.
And that's where we got that story. And so just a little background, Chris Brown is a victim of this kind of crooked policing that's happening in St. Louis, whereas he owes money to several different municipalities, all kind of out for his dollar.
Right. So that was another thing I was going to get to. And again, if you can, relay this into any advice you would have for other people trying to do this sort of thing, you go out there, obviously there's a news event happening, you kind of know what your story is about, but the story you guys ended up telling was quite a bit different from that. So when you're out there, and again, all this craziness is happening, and, sometimes it's dull, sometimes it's, exciting, and you're just trying to figure out what to film, how do you know what your story is going to be? How do you keep an eye out for where a story might emerge? Like in this case, you found something to pursue that ended up being off the beat path, but just as much, if not more important. Mm-hmm. How does somebody figure out where their story's going and keep an eye out for those telling signs?
Yeah, I think the key is just talk to people. I mean, and realize that you're a guest, and you don't know the story as well as the people that live there. I think arriving, we didn't really know what the story was, so we were all ears and kind of chasing down anyone that would really sort of talk to us. And people tend to gravitate toward the people that are interested in talking to the media, and the people that are interested in talking to the media end up when there's that much media in a town, you end up hopefully getting an interview. Yeah.
Now, I was interested that you said you were talking to this one guy, and he said you guys don't know what's going on, and so you turned off the camera. and talk to him then. I assume he was more open to talking when he didn't have a camera in his face. What was kind of your thinking there, and why do you think it panned out so successfully?
Yeah, so we weren't filming him. We were filming his buddy, and he started berating us. And so the filming wasn't gonna work whether we kept filming or not.
Right, but I mean, like, some people would have just turned the camera on him and said, him yelling for 2 minutes is going to be a great soundbite, and that's going to be our news story. You guys, on the other hand, decided, what we want is this thing, he's preventing it, rather than just pointing the camera at him and making a freak show out of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to stop recording and actually talk to him and, figure out what he thinks the story is and decide if that's newsworthy for us. That's, not a huge gamble, but, it's a little bit of a, not the typical decision that a news organization would make, and it really paid off for you.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, I would really caution people from going that route and just getting the quick soundbite. Yeah.
There's always a story deeper down.
That's right. And the thing is, I mean, people like to talk, especially about themselves. So, and there were plenty of people that were willing to be a part of it. So it doesn't make much sense to me to try to make someone who doesn't want to be a part of it, part of your film.
Right, because you'll find plenty of people who are willing to talk and tell you whatever story they have.
Well, there was that one guy. There's a bit where during the protest, and what was the host's name again?
Tim Pool.
Tim. I guess it was Tim talking about how they were flipping a car over,
mm-hmm.
and then this guy just kind of breaks in and says they lose a car, so what? We lost a person.
Yeah, that might be.
That's a powerful moment, man.
That might be my favorite part of the.
Hello?
No, he froze.
Who froze? Did I freeze?
No, he froze.
Froze. Adam's frozen.
Oh no, poor Adam.
It's incredibly cold over there in Carborough.
He looks like he's whistling.
Yeah, but.
There you are. You
right.
froze for a second there, Adam. You were saying that was your favorite part of the whole thing.
We're gonna need to back you up, buddy.
Yeah, that's my favorite part because it comes off so candid. You know that this guy, he's just saying what's on his mind, and Orlando, who's filming at the time, had the good sense to be like to give him the floor and basically, so the guy interrupts Tim Pool, not a big deal, and delivers sort of the thesis of the video.
Nice. That worked out really great. Yeah.
So I noticed there was a lot of camera people listed in the credits. Like, how many people did you have there at a time? And about how long did it take you guys to shoot the majority of this?
And how much footage did you end up with?
Oh, that's a good question, too.
Are you guys there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just back up a bit. We also, one of the other things we realized being there was we weren't necessarily the best people to tell this story. So while we were there, we got contacts with people that had been there since August. There was something like 100 days of straight protests, and there were camera people that were there the entire time to film all of it.
Wow.
And people that were part of the community, people that people trusted. So one of the, I think, smart things that we did was realize we're not going to get this story ourselves. We need to enlist the help of people that really know this community. So we worked with a woman, Katina Parker, who does a lot of kind of activist work, and had been working in Ferguson for a long time at that point. So we enlisted her help, and this is a funny story too. We got an interview with a guy named Reverend Sekou, and he closes out the film and talks a lot about Black Lives Matter movement. And so we show up to film him a little early, and he's being interviewed by this woman, Katina Parker. And after both of those interviews, we realized that she was able to elicit like a totally different interview than we did. was asking him very personal questions, getting emotional responses, and he comes over, gives us a very nice interview, a very knowledgeable interview, full of information, exactly what we wanted, but not the interview that she did. And
I imagine the one you got was very by the numbers. You there?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. And directed maybe toward an audience that looks more like us. I'm not sure. So yeah, we enlisted her help, and she did a great job. There's a kind of the meat of the documentary, I'd say, is shot at these municipal courts where there's lines out the door, nearly 100% African American people that are coming in to pay their traffic fines and see a judge. And so she did a wonderful job filming this and interviewing people, and people really opened up to her. So I think that was just a good idea on our part to not try to tell the whole story ourselves.
Okay. So a lot of those people listed in the credits were not necessarily people Fusion sent out with you, but they were other people you found that you knew would be more knowledgeable and be able to get you a better story.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. How much, oh, sorry?
Yeah. So I would say maybe 20% of the film was like found footage, and that we then contacted, said, can we use this stuff, and for a line in the credits.
Okay. So how much footage did you guys end up with, and what's it like having to edit that all together into your 53-minute time frame? What was your methodology there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure in hours, but probably 3 or 4 terabytes, I'd imagine, of footage.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, like I said, we sort of just went to town on YouTube, ripping all sorts of stuff, seeing how it fitted, contacting people, seeing if they were open to the idea, showing them what we had. So like I said, a good portion of the film ended up being used under a fair use claim, or fair use claims. So yeah, all in all, it was a lot of stuff, a lot of different formats, stuff we ripped, stuff we shot. And so how we went about it? I started with the scenes, the very, very kind of self-contained scenes that had been shot. I figured that would be a good thing to tackle first, and I'd assemble it, see what we had, and then we kind of put it in order in a way that there's some kind of story arc, and then we start to stitch it together with the ideas that we had and the interview content.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned you went and got a lot of footage from YouTube. When you're covering an event like this, you don't have the luxury of going back and doing reshoots or getting more B-roll. If you didn't get it, you didn't get it. On the other hand, you're fortunate enough that this was a huge event, and we live in the time that we do, that there's footage of it all over the place. So if you decided, hey, we need 2 or 3 more shots of that burning cop car, you can find it by scouring the internet. So that's it's a unique resource that we have these days.
That's right. I kind of think of it, or like to think of it, as sort of just participating in what, like, a new chapter of the remix culture. We all know this as people sampling music, but I think there's something else happening now too, which is remixing footage as well.
Were most people pretty receptive to that, or were there people who were standoffish and said, no, you can't use my footage?
Yeah, a mix, and I'll tell you a story. One thing was Fox News was the only camera crew at the apartment complex in the hours that followed Mike Brown's death. And so this was like really good, important footage to have for our doc, because we wanted to make tell a story that wasn't told, which was this this communal feeling of like love and support that happened in that apartment complex in the hours that followed. As Mike Brown's body lay in the street for 5 hours. That's something that a point made by many protesters in Ferguson.
Yes.
So that they alone had that footage, and so we requested to use it, and they denied us. And after consulting with the Fusion lawyers, we used it anyway under a fair use claim. And so we added, we used very short clips. We added our own commentary. We stylized it in a way and mixed it in with our own footage, and it passed muster. As you know,
did they try to go after you for it?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay, so just explain those things again for other people who may need that in the future. Some of those techniques you use to get in under a fair use clause.
Yeah. So the language is pretty broad, as I understand it, and it's something like, does it contribute to a living culture?
Step one, get lawyers.
Yes.
Step two.
But sort of, you know, and you should really, of course, research it yourself and know what kind of risk you can take.
Right.
But a big part of it is, are you using it with your own commentary? You don't want to take someone else's work and have it make it's the same point that it was making, like, itself.
Right.
You want to add your own commentary, and you want to mix it in with a variety of different sources of footage.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed a lot of the footage that you mixed it in with looked like a lot of it almost looked like cell phone footage of just people who were there on the day, which, you know, again, those people were probably very happy to help get the story out.
Yeah, that's right. And someone we did contact and agreed to be part of it was the woman that first filmed this kind of horrible scene of Mike Brown dead in the streets. And so she felt like yeah, our film would be a good place for that to be seen.
Okay. So one thing another thing I was curious about. I feel like I say one thing I was curious about a lot, but anyways, another thing that
several things I was curious about.
One of many things that made me curious about this documentary. There is a lack, and I don't want to accuse you guys of intentionally being one-sided or anything, but there's a definite lack of interviews and perspective from people on the other side. I don't recall seeing any, you know, cops interviewed, the city officials, that kind of thing. We have some footage from some of the public meetings, but we didn't get a lot of the other people's stories, and I'm curious. You know, that can come in two ways. One, you know, that can just be, that's the power of editing, is you get to shape your story and the perspective the way you want. But I'm assuming in this case that was more a case of the level of cooperation you got from the people involved. So tell us why we didn't get to see more of the police and the government's perspective.
Yeah, I can say a couple of things. The first is the police are not allowed to be interviewed. The second is we reached out to Ferguson Police Department several times and did not get a response.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is I think, you know, at the end of the day, I think of myself as a filmmaker, and I'm trying to tell the most compelling and appropriate story, and oftentimes I think that there's to sort of address a larger truth, you can take certain creative, I don't know, steps.
Right. Well, you know, like you said, you're a filmmaker. You're telling a story. You're trying to elicit emotions. You know, a good example is early on when we start to see the riots, we have the distorted guitar wailing and everything, which helps add to the atmosphere and everything. And that's, you know, I wouldn't say that's coloring the story in the wrong light or bad journalism or anything. That's just trying to accentuate the moment and, like I said, get people to empathize with what's going on. Feel all the stuff that's happening outside of the frame that's going on in the moment. So, but I was just curious about, not having that other side. Again, it's, the whole story, no matter how you turn it, the government and the police do not come off looking good. Yeah. And I'm sure they're not eager to get in front of a camera and talk about it.
That's right. And then, so just like to address, the credibility of it, what's something that was important to us was how real and true to the lived experiences of our characters the film was. And so if you ask them, it was a very good, description of what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So we got the blessing of the characters, and I think, more than anything, that means a lot to me.
Now, despite the fact that you didn't get cooperation from the government, participating in interviews or anything, once the video came out, did they turn around and have anything to say? Did they issue a statement? Did they, send you an email saying, hey, you didn't get our side of the story?
Well, at the time this film came out, the Department of Justice had just released their own report on Ferguson, which affirmed our reporting. And so at that time, they had some big things on their plate. They
had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, not just this one fusion documentary. It was the world looking at them.
Right. So did you try to, not being able to get anything directly from that side, did you at any point look at it and say, this might come off as a little one-sided, we need to find a way to make it, maybe if not balanced, but at least not make it look like we're trying to sensationalize something? Or again, does it just come back to, these are the stories we got, let's just be true to that, and hopefully people will understand that we're not twisting things?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it was there were discussions, but at the end of the day, what was decided by the director primarily was that this was going to be a story that tries to is going to be about our characters. We're going to tell the story that they would feel best about. So that's where we landed.
Well, you ended up with a great doc. It was really powerful.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, talk about the response to it. It seems to have garnered quite a few views. I'm sure you're proud of it.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. I think one of the things I'm most proud of, to return to it, is Chris Brown, our main character, said it's probably the most important thing he's done with his life. So that's a good review, that one.
Right.
And so yeah, it got some views on YouTube. It played for I think a much larger audience on television. But yeah, generally I'm very proud.
Okay. Well, again, congratulations. You guys put together a really great documentary. People can check it out on YouTube. It's called Ferguson, A Report from Occupied Territory. And the other one you sent us was, the title's clipped off here.
It's Rio Bizarro, Superhero Politics in Brazil.
Yes.
Also a very timely film.
Yes. The story of, the teaser is, it's the story of rich Batman and poor Batman protesting in Brazil. And if you're sitting there going, rich Batman, poor Batman, check out the documentary. It's very interesting.
It's really good. And, watching that made me think, like, there might be a future documentary in how the Olympics impact a city that it goes to.
Oh, absolutely.
Because what they're going through right now to have the Olympics there this year, and usually like what's left behind afterwards, that's something that needs to be told.
Yeah, I think no one really knows sort of what's happening. Brazil is going through a period of significant political unrest. just recently, currently, the world is waiting to hear whether their president has been impeached.
Yeah.
So this doc, in one way, describes sort of how we got here through the eyes of two comic book crazed activists.
Right. Well, and the other thing is that if I remember correctly, Brazil hosted the World Cup last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know there was a lot of fallout from that and stories about some of the, damage that had done to the economy. So, bringing the Olympics in right after that, with some of the stuff that was mentioned in this documentary, that's just got to be a 1-2 punch on that town. And, I imagine there will be some very significant stories coming out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think generally you see a lot of discontent with the government, and part of that is sort of this cost of living that's gone through the roof as social services have fallen, and other things like sort of building these massive stadiums while bulldozing public housing, these sorts of things. So it's all very interesting. Their minister of sports just resigned leading up to the Olympics. I mean, it's an interesting time in Brazil.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, it can't be good if that happens.
Today I learned Brazil has a minister of sports.
There you go. We can go to bed now, folks. We've learned our fact for the day. So does any of that stuff, have you and Orlando and Tim, had any discussions about, maybe going back and covering the further protests and fallout in Brazil? And, I guess that leads into the general question of what's next on your plate.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Orlando's actually worked quite a bit in Brazil. This would be his third film in a row set in Rio de Janeiro. So that's a big interest of his, and I can't imagine he won't be going back. I do have some interesting things coming up, but I don't think I can actually talk about them much.
Oh, please, spoil us. Spoil us.
Through your NDA.
What do you have? I know you have the Michael Ray, not Michael Ray Williams, not the Michael Ray Williams story.
His name's Mike Ray Anderson. Yeah.
Anderson. It's so close. Our friend is Michael Ray Williams. That would be a much different story. Yes, you have the Michael Ray Anderson story is a documentary you did that's out on the festival circuit right now. Is this Ferguson doc or the Rio protest? Are either of those going to go out to festivals, or are those strictly for the Fusion website?
Yeah, they went straight online, public. So no festivals for them.
Right. Festivals tend to frown on screening stuff that people can watch it on YouTube at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, we're looking for, even if you can't tell us about it, we're looking forward to what you do next, because you've really shown us some quality work so far. Everything you showed us was editing. Are you directing anything anytime soon?
Well, sure. I'll tell you about a film. I was in Paris last week. I showed a film called The Last Bonesetter, which I directed and shot and edited.
Narrative?
No, it's a documentary.
Okay.
About a traditional healer high in the Peruvian Andes, and he is the last of his trade. I met him while working with my one-time anthropology professor. Her name's Kathy Oates. And so she worked in this area in Peru for a long time, for 20-some years, and decided it was time, before it's too late, to make a story about this guy who kind of represents, a dying trade. So that's called The Last Bonesetter.
Right. That's I always find that's an interesting subset of documentary, because there are a lot of, the way technology is progressing and society is changing, there are a lot of things that used to be social positions or jobs or that kind of thing that are just completely fading. And so getting out there and talking to, one of the last practitioners or a person with a certain skill set and recording what you can of that to preserve it, that's a really a noble effort, and often leads to some really fascinating stuff. So yeah, I'd like to see that sometime.
All right.
Well, cool, man. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Do you have any last bits of advice you can give for people out there, thinking about making a documentary or covering some newsworthy event? Kevlar.
Kevlar. I think just generally to aspiring filmmakers or filmmakers, I think I got a lot of advice through schooling and stuff that I would need to specialize. And I think that is maybe the case if you're living in Hollywood or you're going the narrative route. But I've found I did not take that advice. I've sort of tried to develop a lot of different skills, and I found that very rewarding. So there's some general advice. Do not specialize. You can give yourself all the skills that you need to make a film.
Right. Especially in the indie world, you may have to wear many hats.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Did you have any last questions, Conrad?
No, I just wanted to thank you for coming on, man. It's been a good interview. Learned a lot.
Yeah. No, it's been very awesome. We hope to see more of you and more of your work in the near future.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys.
And submit some of the stuff to FilmSpark. We'd love to show it.
Okay, sure.
There's our FilmSpark plug for the episode. Drink, people. Well, this has been another episode of Local Film Talk. Thank you, Adam Booher, for joining us. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask when we started. Is it Booher, Boer?
No, you nailed it.
Booher?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got it right the first time. I'm not usually that good at names. So, Adam Booher, thank you for joining us. And, of course, my co-host, Conrad Arnold. He does Triangle Film Community. You can see what they're up to at trianglefilmcommunity.com. I got that right, didn't I?
You did.
Yay! I'm batting 1,000 right now.
Woohoo!
And of course, follow him on Twitter too. Go ahead and give people the information for all that stuff.
Triangle Film Community is on Twitter at NCFilm, and we are on Facebook. Just do a search for Triangle Film Community, and we'll pop right up.
Yep. Always trying to help get the word out about stuff, which, Adam, if anything you got coming up, anything you want to spread the word about, a screening or a project you need help with, let us know. That's what we're here for, to help spread the word.
All right.
So you can see this episode and all our other episodes on the Local Film Talk YouTube channel. If you don't have time to sit down and watch the whole thing, you can go to iTunes, download the podcast. That's Local Film Talk on iTunes. You can listen to it while you're commuting, while you're doing yard work, while you're jogging, all that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter at Local Film Talk. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't forget to hit us up at localfilmtalk@gmail.com. So, again, Adam Booher, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody at home, for watching, and we will see you next week. Conrad got food poisoning eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich he made his own damn self.
Yes. So, moral of the story, don't eat my PBJs.